Tim, what's it like in there?
In there, it was wonderful. Yeah, a really nice day. Yeah, immaculately organised, as you can imagine, and just a really special atmosphere.
What was it like actually receiving the medal?
Well, it's a unique moment, I think, for anyone. So if you don't see it coming, then it's a wonderful surprise, and it was just a thoroughly nice day.
What did the Princess Royal say to you?
Well, she asked all about the operation, but she clearly already knew an awful lot about it, so she was very well read and very well briefed. But it was lovely to talk to her about it, and she asked about the particulars of the operation, day 1 and day 2, and trying to get the aircraft down on the airfield safely.
Did you feel as if you were up there a long time?
No, not really. No. She's very relaxing. She had a very relaxing manner, so actually we just felt like you're having a chat to her in the tea bar. She was wonderful.
Oh, well, let's talk a little bit about why you're here and what led you to get that. Just take us back to that day in 2013 when you're in your C-17 and you've been sent to South Sudan. Mm-hmm. What were you faced with when you were on your way? What did you think you were going to get?
Well, we were originally briefed that we were going to evacuate around 45 entitled persons from Juba in South Sudan, take them over the border to neighbouring Entebbe in Uganda, where they could safely go on their way and escape the rising civil war that was breaking out in South Sudan. But as we progressed south and sort of made our way down into Africa, the numbers started to creep up more and more rapidly as the flight went on. So we eventually ended up evacuating over 182 people, but it wasn't something that we foresaw at the time when we were leaving Brize Norton.
As you're on your way and the numbers are creeping up and you know the capacity of your aircraft, what are you doing and what are you thinking about?
Well, we were really lucky, so we had a fantastic crew on that day. So there were 3 pilots at the front, 2 load masters and 2 engineers down the back. And down the back of the aircraft is really the load master's speciality, and that's exactly what they were there to do. So we'd had the conversation on the ground at Brize Norton before we'd even left, that what do we do if this number does go up and up, as they tend to, on evacuation operations. So the load masters very sensibly advised that we leave the seat pallets behind, and Flight Sergeant Stu McKeague and Sergeant Bert Gowley were both in agreement that that was the best course of action, because it would give us the most flexibility later on in the task, and certainly that was required. If we'd had the seats on, we wouldn't have been able to get nearly as many people on board, but actually by getting rid of the seats and then sitting people on the floor, we could fill the aircraft up to much greater capacity.
So you weren't that concerned as you headed towards South Sudan then?
No, to be honest, we weren't. We'd briefed it a lot. We discussed it as a team up on the flight deck. We were entirely happy with what was going on the ground. We knew the aircraft had the performance and that we'd trained for the capability to put the aircraft into that airfield, to safely restrain the passengers, even should they have to be seated on the floor, and then to evacuate them to safety. So, yeah, we certainly had a heightened sense of awareness, I would say, but it wasn't something that we were hugely concerned about performing.
That area is then readied. You're aware that things might change, but how aware of the situation on the ground were you as you got closer?
Well, we have a satellite phone on the aircraft, so we were in constant two-way communication with the Defence Attaché, who was on the ground at the airfield in Juba, and in fact it was the news that this aircraft had crashed in front of us was originally broken to us by him. So that was when we kind of had to go into a bit of a rapid plan, and we just positioned the aircraft into the overhead. We could use binoculars and satellite imagery that we'd taken with us to deduce exactly where this aircraft had crashed and therefore work out how much runway was still remaining.
So you're doing this entirely through sight?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did. But it's quite easy. There are lots of different intersections on the runway, and we could deduce from those intersections how much runway was still available. And then, of course, we added a safety margin as well. So we were entirely confident in our ability to land the aircraft safely.
What was going through your mind when they said there's a 737 on this runway?
Well, the first thing we thought as a team really was it depends where it is on the runway. If it's right in the middle of the runway, that's going to cause us a problem because it's really just cut the runway in half. But if it was closer to one end or the other, then we knew that the jet would probably have the performance to get on the deck. The planning that we of course had to conduct was if this 737 wasn't moved off the runway by the time we needed to leave, could we still get airborne with it on the runway? And we obviously did those calculations and worked out that we could safely extract everybody with the jet still on the runway should we be required.
Big decision to make though, and a very rapid one I'd imagine.
No, I wouldn't say it had to be rapid. We sat in the overhead, we discussed it as a team, we had various subject matter experts there. As I said, the loadies down the back knew that they could safely restrain everybody. We, the pilots at the front, were happy that we had the performance to get the aircraft in and out. So once we had a big chat about it, everyone was happy and we decided that was the best course of action. To be honest, leaving them behind, their fate could have been much worse, so we decided that was actually the lesser of two evils.
When you landed, obviously you were landing into a war zone. What did you have to do to make sure that you knew that you could get out fast?
Yeah, well, we were very fortunate on the day. So as well as the 7 aircrew we had on board, we had an extended team of up to 30 people. They involve units from the RAF regiment, RAF medics, the RAF police and RAF movement staff as well. And so as soon as we were on the ground, the RAF regiment moved forward outside of the aircraft and they made sure that our security was maintained, whilst the police and the movement staff went forward to the crowds to try and deduce exactly who was and who wasn't allowed onto our aircraft to evacuate them. So it was, I would say, the situation on the ground was certainly tense, and it was indeed, it was a bit of a melee. But the guys who pushed forward, i.e. those movements officers, the police, the regiment and the medics, did a fantastic job at just calming everything down and making sure that it was really run smoothly.
Flight Lieutenant Timothy Eddy, Royal Air Force, for great courage in the air.
We'd received a brief that the airfield was certainly under threat, but at that stage there was no kinetic activity going on. But even should there been, we were entirely happy that we had the RAF regiment there looking after the asset and looking after not only the crew but the passengers as well. But yeah, the real kudos has to go to the movements and the police who stood right on that front line with all of these people who wanted to get on the aircraft and then had to form some sort of order to the situation, deduce if they were entitled, if they weren't entitled, then to search them to make sure that they weren't going to be a threat to either themselves or us or the aircraft. So, you know, they did a fantastic job in a very difficult situation.
You took the decision to refuel while the engines were still going. What was that? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, flying big aircraft, it's always a bit of a trade-off between weight and the fuel you carry. So the more fuel you carry, the less you can lift because the aircraft's limited by an all-up weight. So we wanted to take the minimum fuel to Juba so we could get the maximum people on and then get them out to safety. But of course, because of the events unfolded, because we'd had to hold, we took the decision to burn all of our diversion fuel and commit to the fact that we would have to put this aircraft into Entebbe afterwards by hook or by crook. However, because of the extended period of time it was taking to load the entitled persons on board, we kept burning into those fuel reserves. And when it became apparent there was fuel available at the airfield, in order to stay on station longer, we took the decision to conduct the first 4 engines running refuel. And huge credit go to both Sergeant Steve Wilcox and SAC Andy Myers, who at the time were straight down the back and they were on it. And it's a very uncomfortable environment for them to work in. They're stood behind 2 jet engines on one wing that are blasting in their face whilst they're trying to refuel the aircraft. But only through doing that did we then manage to get everybody out. Otherwise, we would have had to leave simply through lack of fuel.
How much do you respect, or what are your feelings towards the C-17 nowadays?
Oh, as they've always been, it is a marvellous airplane. We all love it. It's a great pilot's aircraft to fly. It's hugely manoeuvrable and it's got such a wide-ranging spectrum of capabilities. It's a real asset for defence.
What did it do for you that day that you didn't think it could?
Nothing. We knew exactly what it could do and we were entirely happy at the time of the performance in hand. We didn't need to take any undue risk. We could do all the calculations and we just had a very comfortable knowledge of what it could achieve and we just chose to use that.
You speak very much of your team and the fact that you all work together.
Absolutely.
Nonetheless, you're the one with the medal today. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think this medal actually really represents that team and we've spoken about it and they've been commended as well for all of their efforts and they've received a Chief of Joint Operations commendation, which is great news for them. So it is very difficult to be singled out, but as we've discussed as a group, you know, this medal really isn't for me, it is for the entire crew and that of 99 Squadron and the C-17 as well.